Picture this. It's 5 in the morning, it's cold, and you're on the ice. You've got your flasher, your auger, and a whole box of balanced jigs in the hottest colors. You're ready. But an hour goes by, then 2, nothing. Meanwhile, the guy 100 feet away has already pulled 3 walleyes out of his hole using the exact same lure. You start to wonder, is this whole balanced jig thing a scam? Is it a lure that only works for professional anglers and YouTube stars? I'm here to tell you it's not a scam, but you are probably doing it completely, fundamentally wrong. In this video, we are going to dissect every single mistake you're making with a balanced jig, and I promise you, by the end, you'll understand why it's been failing you. So let me ask you, do you think the lure is overrated, or is there a secret you're just not in on? Let me know in the comments, and let's get into it. The balanced jig has a reputation, doesn't it? It's hailed as this miracle lure, this secret weapon for hardwater walleye and jumbo perch. We see the articles, the videos of guys just hammering fish on them. So we go out, buy a few Rapala jigging wraps or similar style baits, tie one on and expect magic. We drop it down the hole and start jigging it like any other spoon or lure we've ever used. And for 90% of us, the result is the same: total disappointment. The problem is that we treat it like just another piece of lead and plastic. We fail to understand that it's not a lure, it's a system that requires a specific rod, line, and technique to work. For years, we've been stuck in the old ways, thinking a more aggressive jig or a brighter color is the answer, when the truth is far more subtle. First, let's address the biggest misunderstanding of all. The balanced jig is not a vertical jig. I want you to burn that into your brain. When you use a spoon or a standard jig, you are working in a vertical column of water. You lift it up, it flutters down. You pop it up, it falls straight back down. The balanced jig is designed to do the opposite. Its purpose is to swim and glide horizontally away from the hole. Think of it less like a jig and more like a glider or an underwater airplane. Its wings, or fins, are designed to catch the water and send it darting off to the side, covering a much wider area than a traditional lure. If you are only thinking about up and down, you have already failed before you've even started. You're using a tool designed for circles and forcing it to move in a straight line. Now, because we misunderstand its purpose, our next mistake is almost automatic: the aggressive rip. We've all done it. You feel impatient, you want to trigger a bite, so you give the rod a huge, hard rip, yanking it up a foot or two. You think you're imparting incredible action, making that lure dance. What you're actually doing is killing the lure's design. A hard rip causes the balanced jig to spin, to tumble, and to fall unnaturally. It doesn't glide, it just chaotically plummets back to its starting position. A predator fish like a walleye sees this, and it doesn't look like a dying minnow, it looks like a piece of junk having a seizure. You are actively preventing the lure from doing the one thing it was engineered to do. It's like flooring the gas pedal in a car that's stuck in the mud. A lot of motion, zero progress. So what is the right action? It's all about the glide. Instead of a hard rip, you want a short, crisp pop or snap of the wrist. We're talking 3 to 6 inches of movement at the rod tip max. Imagine you're trying to flick a bug off your rod tip. It's that quick. What this does is it shoots the lure forward and up. Then on a semi-slack line, the lure's fins take over, and it begins to glide in a wide semicircular path back towards the center. An underwater camera would show it darting out 3, 4, even 5 feet to the side, then slowly circling back as it falls. That horizontal movement is what triggers fish. It covers more ground and presents the bait as a vulnerable, swimming minnow, not a spastic piece of metal. Let's move on to your gear, because your rod is probably your #1 enemy in this fight. Many ice anglers use a soft, flimsy noodle rod or an old, stiff fiberglass rod. Both are terrible for a balanced jig. The noodle rod is too soft. When you try to give that crisp pop we just talked about, the rod just bends and absorbs all the energy. The lure barely moves. You get a mushy, weak action that doesn't create that darting glide. It's like trying to hammer a nail with a banana. All your effort is wasted in the flex of the rod, and the lure down below is just sort of wiggling. It's not getting the sharp impulse it needs to start its glide, so it just hangs there, looking completely unappealing to any fish in the area. On the other end of the spectrum is the rod that's too stiff, like a broom handle. This presents a different problem. A rod without a sensitive, fast-action tip makes it impossible to impart the subtle movements required. More importantly, you can't feel what the lure is doing. You have no idea if it's tangled, fouled on the line, or when it has completed its glide and settled. A proper balanced jig rod has a strong backbone, but a very fast, sensitive tip. This allows you to give that sharp pop, but then the tip telegraphs everything the lure is doing on the fall. You can feel the faint thud as it finishes its glide. Without that sensitive tip, you're fishing completely blind, just guessing at the lure's action and missing the most subtle bites. Now let's talk about the invisible killer of your presentation, your fishing line. If you are using thick, heavy monofilament or a heavy braid, you are tying an anchor to your lure. Remember, the balanced jig needs to glide freely on a semi-slack line. Heavy, stiff monofilament has too much memory and creates a ton of drag in the water. It resists the lure's attempt to swim sideways. Instead of a wide, sweeping glide, the heavy line pulls it back to center too quickly, shortening the glide to almost nothing. You've just turned your $5 gliding lure into a $1 vertical jig. The same goes for thick, water-soaking braid. It gets heavy and pulls the lure down, ruining that delicate, slow, circling fall that drives fish crazy. This brings us to the fluorocarbon leader. I know some old-timers will argue this, but for balanced jigs it is not optional, it is mandatory. You should be using a light main line like a 6 or 8 pound test braid connected to a 3 or 4 foot leader of 6 or 8 pound fluorocarbon. Why? 2 reasons. First, fluorocarbon is virtually invisible underwater, which is critical for finicky fish staring at your lure from inches away. Second, and more importantly for the action, it is stiffer and less visible than braid, but far thinner and more manageable than monofilament of the same strength. It provides the perfect compromise, allowing the lure to glide and dart with minimal resistance or visual distraction. It's a small detail that makes a world of difference in your success rate. Okay, let's look at the absolute smallest detail that makes the biggest difference. How you connect the lure to your line. Are you tying your leader directly to the eyelet of the balanced jig? If you are, stop it. Immediately. Tying direct chokes the lure. It completely restricts its ability to pivot and swim freely. You must use a small snap like a duo lock or a snap that doesn't have a swivel attached. That small metal loop gives the lure a pivot point. When you pop the rod, the lure can move and angle itself properly to begin its glide. Without that pivot, it's like trying to run with your shoelaces tied together. A tiny, inexpensive snap is the key that unlocks the entire action of the bait. Don't overlook this, it's one of the easiest fixes with the biggest payoff. We've fixed your gear, now let's fix your brain. The single most common technique mistake is fishing way too fast. We are an impatient species. We want to be doing something constantly. Pop, pop, drop, pop, pop, drop. We think more movement means more attraction. With a balanced jig, the opposite is true. The strike almost never comes when the lure is moving. It comes when the lure is doing absolutely nothing. It comes during the pause. The glide attracts the fish. It brings them in to investigate. But the long, dead pause is what convinces them to eat. It looks like a stunned or dying minnow hovering helplessly. That's the moment a predator's brain screams easy meal. So how long is the right pause? It is always longer than you think is necessary. After you pop the lure and let it glide back to center, you need to let it sit perfectly still. Start by counting 1, 1,000, 2, 1,000, 3, 1,000 at a minimum. On tough days with lethargic fish, that pause might need to be 10 seconds, 15 seconds. It will feel like an eternity. It will feel wrong. You'll be fighting every instinct in your body that's screaming to jig the rod again, but you have to trust the process. Let the lure do the work by doing nothing. That extended stillness is what separates the anglers catching fish from those just getting exercise. Another major problem is the cadence. Most anglers fall into a hypnotic, metronome-like rhythm. Pop, pop, pause, pop, pop, pause, over and over. While consistency can be good, fish, especially in pressured waters, get conditioned to this. They see that same predictable action all day long from every angler on the lake. It becomes unnatural. Baitfish don't move in perfect repeating patterns. They are erratic. They dart, they pause, they twitch, they sit still. Your presentation should mimic this chaos, not a perfectly timed dance routine. If you're doing the same thing for more than a minute without a bite, you're just educating the fish on what to avoid. So, here is how you break that rhythm. You need to be unpredictable. Start with a single, sharp pop and a long pause. Then, try 2 quick, short pops, followed by an even longer pause. Then, maybe just barely, lift the lure 3 inches and let it settle back down. Follow that with a series of tiny, almost imperceptible twitches, just making the lure quiver in place. Then go back to a big glide. Mix it up. Never let the fish figure out your pattern. The goal is to imitate a living, breathing, and confused baitfish. This randomness is what triggers a predatory response. It's the break in the pattern that makes a hesitant walleye finally commit and strike. Many fishermen are also completely ignoring the bottom third of the water column. They drop the lure down, and if they don't mark fish on the flasher, they immediately reel up a few feet and start jigging in open water. But a balanced jig is an incredible tool for triggering bottom-hugging fish. Let the lure hit the bottom. Now don't pound it into the mud. Instead, give it a short, low pop, just enough to make it hop up a foot, dart sideways, and then settle back to the bottom. This little puff of silt or sand can attract fish from a surprising distance. They come in to see what critter is digging in the mud, and they find your lure sitting there, looking like an easy meal. It's a subtle but deadly effective technique. Conversely, don't get so focused on the bottom that you ignore what's happening above you. This is especially true for perch and crappie, but walleye will do it too. They suspend. If you're fishing in 20 feet of water, don't be afraid to reel up and work the lure at 10 or 12 feet for a while. Fish often cruise higher in the water column, looking for schools of baitfish. A balanced jig with its horizontal swimming action is the perfect search tool for these suspended, active fish. You can cover a massive 10-foot wide circle of water 10 feet off the bottom. If you only fish the bottom 2 feet, you are completely invisible to a huge percentage of the fish in your area. Alright, let's talk about the most debated topic in fishing: color. We all have our favorites: perch patterns, fire tiger, glow red, and we tend to stick to them. The truth is, color is probably one of the last things you should worry about, but it's not irrelevant. The general rule is simple: in clear water with good light penetration, use natural patterns that mimic the local forage, like shiners or perch. In stained, dirty water, or during low-light periods like sunrise and sunset, use brighter, more obnoxious colors like chartreuse, orange, or glow patterns. These colors don't necessarily look natural, but they create a better silhouette and are easier for the fish to see. Your technique is far more important, but using the right color for the conditions is an easy way to slightly increase your odds. Another variable we often get wrong is size. Many anglers, especially those targeting walleye, automatically reach for the biggest balanced jig in their box. They think bigger bait equals bigger fish. While that can be true on days with high fishing pressure, or when the fish are in a negative or neutral mood, a large, aggressive presentation can actually spook them. Don't be afraid to downsize. Dropping from a number 7 to a number 5, or even a tiny number 3, can be a game changer. A smaller lure presents as a less threatening, easier snack. It has a more subtle, delicate glide. You might be surprised at how many big walleyes will inhale a tiny jig when they refuse to even look at a larger one. Here's a technique that almost nobody talks about, but it's one of the deadliest tricks in the book. It's called the dead stick balanced jig. You'll need a second rod for this. In your primary hole, you actively jig your lure. In a second hole, just a foot or two away, you rig up another rod with a balanced jig, but on this rod, you hook a live minnow through the back or tail on the bottom treble hook. Then you just drop it down to the desired depth and put the rod in a holder. The actively jigged lure draws fish in with its flash and vibration. They come to investigate and they see the second lure with a real, struggling minnow just sitting there. It's an absolutely irresistible meal. It's the ultimate 1-2 punch. If you're using electronics like a flasher or a sonar, you are sitting on a goldmine of information, but most people are reading it wrong. Don't just look for the red lines indicating fish. Watch how those lines react to your lure. When you pop your jig, does the red line rise to meet it? That's an interested fish. Now is the time for a long pause or a subtle quiver. Does the red line appear and then fade away? You might be jigging too aggressively. Does the line stay at the bottom and refuse to move? Try dropping your lure to the bottom and making a puff of silt. Your electronics are not just for finding fish, they are for interpreting their mood in real time. Let the fish tell you what cadence they want. Stop guessing and start reacting to what you see on the screen. Let's talk about the mental game. This might be the hardest part. When the fish aren't biting, it's easy to get frustrated. And what do we do when we're frustrated? We get impatient. We start jigging harder, faster, and more aggressively. We do the exact opposite of what we should be doing. We abandon the long pause. We forget the subtle snaps. We start ripping the lure like we're trying to start a lawnmower. This frustration is a cycle of failure. The more you overwork the lure, the fewer fish you attract, and the more frustrated you get. You have to force yourself to slow down, to be deliberate, and to trust the system, even when it feels like nothing is working. Patience is the most underrated tool in your entire tackle box. Finally, you need to understand that this is all connected. It's a complete system. You can have the perfect cadence, but if you're using a noodle rod and heavy line, it won't matter. You can have the best rod and line, but if you're tying directly to the lure and ripping it aggressively, it won't work. It's not about finding one magic bullet. It's about combining the right rod with the right line, the right leader, the right snap, and the right retrieve. Every piece of the puzzle has to fit. Once you stop thinking of the balance jig as a magic lure and start treating it as a precision instrument that requires a complete system to operate, that's when you'll stop watching other people catch fish and start catching them yourself. So there you have it. The reason the balance jig works for everyone else is because they understand it's not a brute force tool, it's a finesse presentation. The big secret, the what at a Poverot moment, is that success often comes from doing less, not more. It's about a slower, more patient approach. It's the subtle pop, not the hard rip. It's the agonizingly long pause, not the constant movement. It's about letting the lure's design do the work for you. All those small details, the light line, the fluoro leader, the tiny snap, they aren't just suggestions. They are the foundation of the entire system. Once you embrace this less is more philosophy, your entire approach to this lure will change, and I guarantee your results will too. Thank you so much for watching. If this cleared things up for you, do me a favor and hit that like button and subscribe so you don't miss the next one. Now I have a question for you. What is the one lure in your tackle box that you've never had any luck with but you refuse to give up on? Drop it in the comments below. I'd love to hear about it.